All right, so if you didn't, this is the Cliff Notes. It's the movie. So we're going to talk about some of that. But anyway, Aaron, please you start and we'll go down the list.
Thanks for having us. Good morning, everyone. I'm Aaron Reed. I'm the founder and chief behavioral scientist at Sentient Decision Science. We essentially bridge the gap between behavioral science and business, making it practical and accessible.
Thank you. Zach?
I'm Isaac Rogers. I'm the CEO of 2020 Technology, and I moderate. 2020 Technology is a firm that provides primarily qualitative but also quantitative software, services, recruiting. So we're very much in the kind of the putting together digital research projects for researchers. Then I moderate is a full-service hybrid quant-qual shop.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Vogel. I'm with Taluna. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing for North America. Taluna is a digital insights company. We manage a community of survey respondents as well as a number of technology offerings to help to tap into those respondents for feedback.
And good morning, I'm Rick Kelly. I'm a Vice President of Products over at Fuel Cycle, although I wish now that my title were Senior Expert like the folks at McKinsey. And so Fuel Cycle is an online insight community platform. We are very much a technology company, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. And should thank you all because you're also sponsors of the Grit Report. It actually costs money to do that. We couldn't do it without folks like all of these who actually, spend a little bit of money with us to help offset the costs. So we were just talking with the previous one about automation, right? So the goal of Grit is to actually track this stuff, to actually ask the industry, clients and suppliers, what are you doing? So it's very tactical. What are the, how's this impacting your business? So we asked a question about adoption of automation. Our own Ray Pointer, again, my guru, helped analyze this data. And so it's a drop-down, it's a click-through matrix of, which of these things are you doing? And here's the results. So we can see that certainly automation is making a play. These were the top 5 applications of automation tools. We're not showing trending data on this because we changed the question a little bit from last year, enough that we didn't feel comfortable showing the trending data. But if we accept that it's roughly the same from last year, we are seeing growth. And what's particularly interesting is that, for the most part, we're seeing decent alignment between client and supplier, except analysis of social media data, which we see that in other past ways of Grid as well. And when I hear suppliers say, well, and particularly a few years ago, my clients aren't asking me for social media data, and I'd say, yes, that's right. They're not asking you for the analysis of social media data, but they are absolutely doing it. So enough out of me. What do you guys think about the adoption of automation overall? How's it impacting your businesses? What are you hearing from your clients? Rick, we'll go in reverse order from introductions. Rick, we'll start with you and just go down the line.
Sounds great. So I think automation is exciting and frightening for many people, but I think that automation is necessary, and it's kind of the next evolution of research. There's lots of things that I think people don't need to be involved in, and in fact, I think automation is actually very much an enabling technology because it enables us as researchers to do more. The gentleman beforehand mentioned that his job function is now 20% analytics and 80% storytelling. And I think that's critically important to think about, is that automation frees up time to allow us to do more and expand our capacity. And so things like lots of data analysis, data processing, these are things that if they're not already automated, will soon be automated, and we should think about carefully. At the same time, I think it's a warning for people in the research industry. There's a report that's been mentioned. It's an influential report on the role of automation and employment, published by a couple professors of engineering at Oxford 3 or 4 years ago. And if you look at the probability of market research analysis being automated, or that job as a function, that they estimated the probability, I think it was 61%. And so I think automation is very much coming, and that as individuals and as companies, we either adapt to that, or we fall by the wayside in the long run.
Okay. So Jen, obviously you guys have been you've launched a series of tools around automation of the research process, so you must be a believer. Yes, how's that going?
I am a believer, and I think that what we see in some cases is that buyers are slow to adopt automation. I heard in the panel before, automation is a dirty word. And I would agree with that in some ways. I think when people hear automation, they think do it yourself, and they think this is going to be more work for me. And instead of thinking this is going to free up intellectual capacity, this is going to free up time, this is going to free up resources and allow me to do more. So I think that's, obviously we're seeing the trend from the GRIT report over the years that there is more and more adoption, but I think those companies that are slow to adopt are thinking of it in sort of a way that this is going to be more work or harder for me, or the onboarding or the training is going to be too much. And I think in a lot of ways too, if I think about things like automated sampling, we've kind of been behind the curtain for so many years, and now it's our job to kind of demystify this automated sampling and give empower our clients to be able to tap into these things themselves, and also have a support staff behind those tools to make it easy for them to use.
So, Isaac, obviously, you guys have been kind of pushing the boundaries of online qualitative for forever. But I would guess that they're still foreseeing a lag around the adoption of automation that is within the realm of qualitative. Is that right?
I would say that's pretty accurate. I mean, we haven't seen as much automation on the research phase itself as we've seen certainly in quantitative. But you know what I see when I look at this chart, Lenny? I see a really, really scary fork in a road. And I'll tell you a personal story about it in a little bit that I think may help. But when I look at this, I see opportunity and I see a risk. I see that all of those bar charts, when I look at that, I see that's time and money that's going to be saved in the research process.
Absolutely.
The scary part for me is what are we going to do with that time and money? And I will tell you, it's really, really hard to do the right thing. If we look at that and we say automation is an incredible way to do more research, in 4 or 5 years, we will be at the data collection conference. We will not be at an insight conference or a market research conference. We will be seen as data collectors. We have got to use the balance of the time and resources and money that comes with this to invest in the critical thinking and the right kind of talent for our industry. If we don't do that, I believe we have a chance we will fail at making it to the next level.
Yeah.
It is hard. It is really hard to make that choice. I will tell you, I didn't get it right. Several years ago, we invested a lot of money in automating the qualitative recruiting process out of our own panel and tried to eliminate all the paper processes that used to exist, spent a lot of money and a lot of time, and we patted ourselves on the back, and we turned around to our clients and we went, see, it's great, it's automated. They didn't care. They don't care. What they wanted us to do is to take that time and energy and reinvest it in better research, better results, better critical thinking. And if we don't do that, we will be in the data collection industry pretty soon.
Yep. So on that point, one of the first big engagements that I've done on the consulting side was for a food manufacturer who had that exact brief. They said, Lenny, we want to cut our costs by 80% in tracking and testing. So help us find the solutions to do that. And we did that. But it wasn't because they wanted to cut their budget by that much. They wanted to reallocate those funds to strategic research, to high end, and actually mostly into qualitative and ethnographic and those type of things, behavioral science. So I think it's a fork, but I think it can still be a convergence. If we think of it from that way, that the automation is going to make the grunt work cheaper, which, let's bear in mind, is also going to mean that your top lines are going to decrease, right? This becomes a volume play versus the traditional business model. But they can also increase in other ways through the strategy and impact and those things. So that is a path, so the data collection is still a part, but not the whole.
Data collection is never going to go away.
Right.
But I think our effort needs to be put on making that the easy part of the process so that we can spend our time on the more challenging things that our clients are really asking us to do.
Right. So, Aaron, obviously technology is central to how you collect the information from a behavioral standpoint. How's automation playing in that whole arena and what you guys are seeing and hearing as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. I really appreciate these comments. And I would echo them too. From a personal story perspective, the end of last year, we were having our company meeting, and one of the things that I'd like to do at that company meeting is talk about what were the most rewarding projects or products that you worked on during the year and why. And I remember going around the room, you may remember this too, and the consistent theme with the entire research team was it was a project where I got to work directly with a client, that I saw the business impact of our work. And this was consistent right around the room. It was about business impact, and it was about client interaction. It wasn't about research process, and most of these people actually were focused on research process. But the opportunities that they had to interact with clients and actually see the impact, the business impact of their work, was what was most rewarding. That really lit me up because automation enables that. Automation allows us to focus on the client, on the business impact, on the storytelling to inspire action, and I do believe that's the future. So yeah, in behavioral science, you might think, well, maybe there's not automation in that space. It's, you know, it's physiological measurement, it's non-conscious measurement, but automation is real there too. And if you look at the percentage of companies who have adopted behavioral science methods and the methods that they're adopting, those that are most widely adopted are those that have been automated in part and scaled globally. Facial coding, eye tracking, which is now online, implicit association techniques. The science, the behavioral science, the design has been automated, allowing all of us smart researchers and insights professionals to focus on what's the insight and what's the impact.
Yeah, and I think that's what Tamara was talking about as well, even from the McKinsey standpoint. Now we have the technology to scale, you know, incredibly impactful measures that have nothing to do with surveys and focus groups. So and we're seeing that adoption. So another question that kind of dovetails this, you mentioned it, Jen, around sample. So a couple of years ago, our friends at SampleCon asked us if we would ask a few questions in Grit around sampling. And it is a bedrock issue for our industry. If we don't ask the right people the right questions or get the right data from the right people, then what we produce is shit. It's just that simple. So, but the world is changing. The world, it's harder to get in touch with folks, and it's harder to engage them. So sampling is a problem. So we asked the question, what should sample providers do to help address some of these issues? And this was interesting. You better don't touch our costs. Don't you charge more? No. That's off limits for everybody, except for sample providers. Sample providers said, yes, we should charge more if you're not writing good surveys and are mobile compliant, but no one else agreed with that, which is concerning. Basically, we're telling sample providers that we're in an abusive relationship. So you need to take what we give you and give us what we want, the way we want it, or, you know, screw you. When the reality is sample providers could actually say, yeah, no, because we're the key for you to get what you need. So we need to play together correctly and effectively. So that's one thing that really jumped out for me. You guys can see, you know, some of these things of Vorse interview lines. It's all about changing to be more consumer friendly. It's about being more compliant about the world today of how consumers engage with the world around them, which is primarily via this device or some variation of this device. So thoughts on kind of the relationship between sample, obviously you guys talked about it a little bit, Isaac, you know, how we go from there. Let's go, we'll start with you, Jen, ladies first, since you're the sample provider on the panel. Okay.
Thank you. This is, we've heard a lot of conversation about mobile this week, and it is very concerning. I think we've been having the same conversation about mobile for a long time, and the conversation should be different because mobile is different. So this idea that we should do a mobile study or we should do a not mobile study is non-existent anymore. There's no such thing as a not mobile study. They're all mobile, and we have to be thinking of it that way. From a marketing perspective, a brand isn't going to build a digital marketing strategy only for online. They're going to build it for every device or whatever, and we need to complement a device-agnostic digital marketing strategy with a device-agnostic market research strategy as well. You know, if you want to test concepts on, I want them to be big on the screen. Well, consumers aren't going to view them big on the screen. They're going to view them small on their mobile, so we need to test it in that environment. It's no longer a mobile versus online issue. It's actually a data quality issue. So we're not going to get representative results if we're just focusing on online because you're excluding a very large portion of the population, and you're not testing in a medium that they're using, because we're seeing people take surveys organically on mobile devices, even if we're not asking them to, and that's been a shift over the last 10 years. So it is concerning that this is even still a conversation, because we should, we need to be thinking about surveys not just as an online survey or a mobile survey. We have to think of it as digital content, and the digital content needs to be optimized across all platforms.
Great. That's a wonderful quote. Did you guys all write that down? Yeah? Okay. Rick, any thoughts on this?
I have very strong feelings, Lenny.
Please share. Please. We're
You
with
know,
you, brother.
first of all, I agree with everything that Jen has said, and I hope that the next wave of the GRIT report is the last time that you need to ask this question, because everybody's adopted mobile. And I think Jen's exactly right, is that, frankly, if we don't think mobile first, we're being stupid. Like, plainly, truly, it's stupid not to think mobile first and mobile only. U.S. consumer attention, over 60% of it is, time spent on the internet is on a mobile device. In Europe, in Africa, in Asia, that time is higher, right? And so we have to think mobile first, and it affects data quality, because when you introduce friction into the user experience of taking a survey or participating in research, you only allow for highly motivated respondents to participate. And that means you either have respondents who are very angry or very excited or are incentivized very, very well, right? And so that introduces a host of data quality issues into the research, and we need to start prioritizing usability and recognize the fact that usability for research methods has an effect on the data quality that we deliver to our clients. And in fact, so one of the constraints that I often suggest to people is, if you need to sit down, you actually should design your research on your smartphone. You can pop anything open there, you can type away at it, and if you're frustrated with how long it's taking you to design research on your smartphone, I can guarantee you that respondents are frustrated at you. And so use that as a constraint. Look at mobile as an enabling technology rather than a limiting technology, because there's so much more that we can be doing on mobile around video, photos, and in the moment research than we could with an old paradigm. And so truly, I hope this next wave is the last time you have to ask this, because everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Isaac, Aaron, thoughts on sample?
We come from a slightly different angle. We're primarily qualitative. We do a heck of a lot of nationwide recruiting, and so we don't call them surveys, but we do pre-screeners, right? You know what the average length of a pre-screener is for somebody that gets into a study for us? We do thousands of these a year, so it's over a large base. It's 15.7 minutes. So this trend is also affecting qualitative in the idea that, number one, these surveys aren't getting shorter, they're getting longer. And number two, I think we're about 65 or 70% of our respondents are completing these pre-screeners on a mobile device. And so both of those things have to be taken into consideration. We are reaching a point, we've kind of studied in our own way our panel, and we are coming to a conclusion that in order to get a representative sample to complete the pre-screening we do, we're probably going to reach a point where when a pre-screener reaches a certain number of questions, we're going to have to start charging a fee and then paying those respondents for their time, because we're losing wholesale portions of our population. They trust research less, so we're going to have to go back to our clients in the very near future and say, look, if you want to ask 25, 35, 45 questions in a pre-screener, it's going to cost you more. Those are not conversations we're looking forward to, but they're conversations we're just going to have for the health of our panel.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. When we first started with online sample years ago, all of the concern was about quality. Is it going to be, what's the quality of the sample? And that was the big differentiator for sample providers. We're still in that same space. There was a lot of evidence that was put out when we first started this on the quality of sample. I would love to see some evidence from some sample providers that show here's a non-mobile optimized survey, and here's the quality of that data. Here's an optimized mobile survey, and here's the quality of that data. Yeah. I think we won't need to ask this question much longer if we start to publish those kinds of results, and we can all see that, oh gosh, we really need to do this.
I think that's a brilliant point. I mean, I go to a lot of conferences and I read a lot of material in the industry, and I don't see enough conversation around, so what? So what does it mean that we are making people take these surveys in ways that aren't efficient for them? And what are we losing?
So, I think Lightspeed and Research Now issued a call to action for folks to share that data. So, echo that. I hope that you're right. I'm afraid that you're not. Not yet. And I feel for you, Isaac, having those conversations. Yeah. But I think it's absolutely what we have to do. So earlier on the previous panel, we talked about some surprising results from the GRIT study, where we asked a series of questions about the skills that you expect somebody to have when they graduate from an MMR program from our friends at the University of Georgia or Michigan State, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, it wasn't know how to run tabs or write a questionnaire or write a discussion guide. Those were not the skills. These were the skills. Critical thinking, turn insights into action. Very small, even data science was smaller, and storytelling was kind of at the end. Almost like that's table stakes is how I read that. You should just know how to do that, but if you do these other things. So don't want to belabor points, and we talked about this a lot on the previous panel, but obviously evidence that our skill sets are changing. I would ask, though, from a supplier perspective, because all of you are suppliers, what does that mean for your business? Is you're shifting the models and the profiles of the people that you're hiring. So we'll go back in reverse order again. So, Aaron.
Yeah, I think this data is really interesting. Critical thinking, I think it's too easy to say, hey, this is number one. We all should be thinking critically. So that's probably why that rises to the top. And I think turning insights into actions and storytelling are not necessarily separate. So when I look at this data, I say, yes, automation enables us to focus on turning insights into actions. But the people that are on the research teams who are executing these studies, they need help. It's not just training those who are coming out of programs now, it's actually training the current workforce on how do we do this.
Yeah.
And I see it. I see it on my team. They want to write insights. They want to turn insights into actions. And they're looking to leadership to say, okay, how do I do this? I've been trained on how to run crosstabs. How do I take that next step? And so I think senior leaders in our organizations need to do that training internally, because that's typically where that's falling now. It's actually rising up to the more senior levels to turn it into story and to turn it into insights to action. Teach the rest of your team how to do that. But I'd like to see more interaction with clients too. Some of the best insights writers on our supplier team are former clients.
Of course, yeah.
Right, because they know the language, they know how to motivate behavior inside the organization. So I think that's an opportunity for us as an industry, more collaboration. How can clients and suppliers come together to really understand what an impactful insights report is, and how can suppliers deliver that to clients?
I was meeting with a client yesterday, somebody from the client side, and asked, what's your biggest challenge? And their biggest challenge was, this is verbatim, this is a very large supplier or client, is they've gotten to the point where all they ask for their suppliers is just give us the data, because they don't trust them to write a report that is impactful. Yeah. They say they just have to rewrite everything they get anyway. Yeah. So to your point, there's a pretty serious skill gap within the organizations. If clients are just kind of throwing their hands up in the air and saying, just give me the damn tabs, I'll do it myself, because it's cheaper and faster if I do it that way. Now, obviously, there could be lots of unique aspects of that particular story, but it does indicate that, yes, we need to do more to step up and deliver more. So, any thoughts on this?
I totally agree. We have a skill and talent gap in the industry. When I look at our organization or most organizations, I see people who have really dedicated their lives to market research. And that's both a really good and a really bad thing, because we see a lot of promotion from within. We see a lot of people who move between organizations and move up, but they've stayed in research. And they aren't really business people in a lot of ways. They're people who grew up in research, and they were taught research, and they're taught how to run tabs, and they're taught how to run focus groups. But we haven't really created mechanisms where at certain points in people's career, we can invest in them so that they can become those business consultants, so they can really understand sales and marketing and product development, how those things work. They really, really understand research, but they're being asked to understand the business problems more. And so I think there's a massive talent gap in our industry because of that.
Well, you said it, it's the investment.
Yeah.
So in previous waves of grid, I don't have no numbers off the top of my head, but we asked these questions about internal investment in training and education, and it's pretty pathetic, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So so that's certainly part of the equation overall. So Jen, Rick, thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting conversation, and I think we're all lucky enough to be in an industry that's changing really rapidly and growing and evolving, and I agree that it's not just about getting a specific type of talent out of, education or that sort of thing, but really empowering our industry to grow with all the technology and the, new methodologies that are coming about.
Yeah, I think this specific question was asked around the MMR programs, but I think it's important to recognize that education today can no longer be a discrete event that happens early in somebody's career, and instead we need to switch to or think through ongoing modular education that's formalized within an institution.
Good. Yeah. Right. So here's a good news slide. So we asked folks whether their budgets on the buyer side, whether their budgets were increasing or decreasing, and on the suppliers, whether their revenue projections were increasing or decreasing. And yeah, we're out of the recession, it appears. So, that's good. We knew that already. The data was there, but we've seen a clear trend. So very good news. Although, interestingly enough, there certainly is a disparity between the levels of optimism between suppliers and clients, which my take is that means there's a whole lot of people that are really expecting to get a slice of that pie, and that pie is going to be cut in very, very small pieces. But overall, still good news. But kind of a shock, not a shock, but at least an awareness that we're still in a very competitive landscape for a finite resource in terms of both suppliers and clients in terms of their budget. But any thoughts other than yay,
We'll gladly take all your money.
Yeah.
This just came to mind, actually. I think it's quite useful looking at the difference in the increase for suppliers versus buyers. If we took a proportion of that change, obviously the suppliers are more optimistic. I think we could just use that as adjust your sales pipeline down by that percentage, and you'll probably be able to manage your business a little bit more.
There we go. So we have an algorithm there.
That's good.
All right, good.
It's just that proportion.
Is that implicit?
There's a big difference.
It's very conscious. It's not non-conscious. Although we should point out too that let's be aware that we've heard earlier that buyer budgets are shrinking. So although there's more that are optimistic, there's certainly folks that they see it declining. And I don't think that's an issue that's not declining because research isn't valuable. The budget's being allocated to other things, or they're simply saying automation, do it cheaper, faster, et cetera.
May I add one more thing on that?
No.
This is not a joke for us, but when I see the budget decrease and where the source is going, somewhere else, a theme that I continually hear is this distinction on the client side that this is behavioral data, and you, market researcher, are stated data. And the weight that is given to behavioral data is much greater these days than stated data. And I have a problem with that because the research that we do is largely unstated. And it is deeper and it's emotional. Sometimes it's physiological, but it's about the non-conscious and the mind. That's not stated. And so stated research is starting to get a bad rap relative to behavioral data, but unstated research gives us much deeper insight into the why behind the behavior that's getting all of the influx of budget. And so I think that's actually a change of frame that we need to create here, and we can actually bring it out of Atlanta, that we're not stated research. We're deep behavioral insight research, which is very different from stated research.
Okay. I'm trying to be conscious of time, so this is also more a little high-end. So over the course of the last few years, we found that a lot of folks were utilizing GRIT as a strategic planning tool, as a benchmarking tool. And we thought, let's see if we could actually begin the process of turning this into a benchmark study. So we asked a series of questions that were based on the variable was whether a company felt that their budget or revenue was going to increase or decrease. That was a dependent variable in regression analysis, with a series of best practices. That if you did these things as an organization, either as a client or supplier, these things were more predictive of growth, either budget growth, if that being a sign that the organization is growing on the client side, or revenue growth on the supplier side. And there's a whole other thing happening around this that we'll tell you about later. Look for me to spam you in about a month with more information around all of this. But what came were some of the things we've already heard. So really, I think this is more of just this is quantitatively saying, do these things, and the organization is going to be in good shape. Here's kind of the path. Here's your map for organizational impact. So thoughts on this?
One thing that jumps out at me here is at the end where it talks about prioritizing quality of insights over speed, cost, and innovation. And I wonder if we need to sacrifice quality for those other, for those other things. I think the idea of quick research being quick and dirty and, poor quality, we have to kind of erase that and shift the conversation a little bit. I think a lot of the opportunities for, speed, cost, innovation provide better data quality as far as methodology is concerned. So, I could ask a survey that's a traditional survey about, what did you do on your mobile device for the last 48 hours? And I'm going to get bad data quality. But if I use behavioral data, as was mentioned before, and combine that with some quantitative feedback, my data quality is going to be much higher, and that might fall in the innovation category. But I don't think we're sacrificing quality. I think it's the opposite. Yep. So I think the idea that you can either have fast, cheap, or good, two, but not all three. I think we have to kind of erase that and find ways that we can get all three, because with all the technological advances that are happening in the industry, I've heard a lot of really interesting pitches at this conference this week and seen some really cool technologies. I think that it's possible to have all three.
Yeah, I would agree. Other thoughts?
Agreed completely. I don't think there's a trade-off there. And I think the thing to point out is that whatever we do, we need to provide measurable ROI and show business impact. I think that's a real theme that everybody's hearing from suppliers, and it was a theme throughout the GRIT report, is that show impact, show that you're making a difference to the organization.
All right. Guys?
I actually had an opportunity to write an article in the GRIT report for talking about some of these same kind of ideas, and as a provider of technology and a kind of a technologist, it kind of pains me to say this, but the technology really doesn't matter. Like, it's a little bit table stakes. Like, there's lots of great technologies out there. I don't know anybody who says, because I use platform X over platform Y, I got radically different business results. I think those are just part of the decisions we make. But we spend a lot of time in our industry talking about the technology and talking about those things. And I wish we could take the balance of that time and really focus on the left side of this chart, talking about consultation, talking about how we can really understand the business problem, and less time trying to figure out how to find the newest whiz-bang gizmo that we can plug into our research so it looks like we're driving something forward.
Yep. Okay. I should give a shout out too to our friends Greg Archibald, Jeff Resnick, and Michael Lieberman, who worked on this whole benchmark component. If you have questions, see any of them, and they will bend your ear for hours on the impact of this. All right, now here we go. This is the edition of GRIT that everybody loves, the GRIT 50, which I need to be clear that the GRIT 50 is a brand tracker. It is a top-of-mind brand awareness tracker. People ask, how do you get on the GRIT 50, Lenny? Here's $100. No. It's like, well, we'll take your $100 because we're also a marketing company. So yes, that's how you get on the GRIT 50 is you just market. You market more effectively in all of the channels that are available to us to market today. What's interesting is, for me in looking at this, really get into the marketing mode of how these companies convey information. Many of them use different channels. There's Tom Anderson with Odentext, who's the most brilliant guerrilla content marketer that I've ever seen. There's Zappy, who's just the kind of the cool modern online. And there's Ipsos and Nielsen and GfK and LRW and Kantar, which are just centers of gravity, right? I mean, they're just there, and you have to recognize them. And of course, there's System 1 Group, which was amazing. I have to give them props. In the middle of a branding change from Brain Juicer to System 1 Group, if we counted individually Brain Juicer and System 1, both of them still would have been in the top 10. So we combine them, and they remain number one. So they have their secret weapon, obviously, which is John Kieran, who's just, we should all clone John Kieran and work in our own businesses, and we'd be a tie across the board. But what's even more interesting, though, is also the brands. And Unilever, I would say, is the most visible of any of the brands in the insight space talking about doing cool stuff. Again, they have Stan's kind of the equivalent of John on the client side. So all this means these companies are doing and talking and sharing and that's driving awareness. So I've probably just stolen everybody's thunder because I'm not sure what else there is to say, but please,
All right, I'll take a swing at this. So a lot of people look at the list on the right and they go, well, of course, it's just about market share, and they do great marketing, and that's part of it. But I think something that I've seen pretty consistently from some of the names on the right-hand side is they more often than not have some of the best critical thinkers somewhere in their organization that can come in and play a part in the research process. And as you get into smaller companies, it's really hard to have those subject matter experts, those people who've spent 25 years understanding the automotive industry and how to do research and how to interpret research. And so I actually think they do have subject matter experts in that consultation level that you don't find other places. And when you ask this question of clients, they're going to go, well, of course, the people who are most innovative are the people who can change my business the most.
Right.
They don't care about the technology. They don't care about the whiz-bang stuff down at the bottom. They care about who can move my business the most, and those people, I think, have the consultants on staff. One of those people in particular, I had the opportunity to take their COO out to lunch one time, and I said, what's your guys' secret? Like, I look at your research. It's about the same as everybody else's, but your clients love the results, and you're always listed as an innovative company. What do you do? And she looked at me and said, we don't hire researchers. We hire business people, and we teach them research. And I thought that was a really brilliant comment, because as much as we talk about the technology and the process, what we're seeing in stuff like Grid is, it matters less. It's more about the business impact, and how we make the sausage, not as important.
May I offer some contrast to that? I do agree with the fact about business impact, and that's really where we need to go as an industry. But if you look in the report about all of the companies who are gaining ground on the GRIP Top 50, they tend to be technology focused. And take a look at Tom's leap, 32-place leap or something along those lines. Odin Tex is number 4 on the most innovative suppliers. Wonderful technology and incredible marketing by Tom there. But it's technology's ability to enable insights for business impact. And I think that's consistent with where investment in the industry is going too. If you look at the $60 million that Lucid just got in capital, some of the acquisitions, Decipher by Focus Vision, Nielsen's Neurofocus and Interscope acquisitions recently, those are investments in technology, not for technology's sake, but as it can enable insights to impact business. So I don't think that it's not technology or business impact. I think it's technology enabling business impact.
And Rick, you did an analysis in the commentary on the correlation between revenue and innovation. So.
Yeah, I did. So I think it's in the great report, so you can read the 500-word version of this. But the question is, does innovation actually matter to business? And so what we did is we took the results of the top 25 most innovative clients. We looked at their growth rate and then compared their growth rates to the 2-year CAGR for the industry that they're in, and compared how innovative clients compare to their industry. And in 6 of the 8 industries represented in the most innovative clients, we found that innovative research companies outperform their industry. And so I think that that bodes well for companies that are investing in research and investing in new developments to drive research forward.
Yeah, and I would say we did roughly the same analysis internally without publishing it on the supplier side. There's corollaries there. So it's not universal, but it does. I don't know about you guys, but I would really like to go grab some more coffee. And so rather than we do Q&A from here, let's do personal Q&A over the break. So I'm not going to come back for about another hour or two. I will be back to wrap us all up at the very end with the BCG panel. Thank you guys so much for this morning. Thank you guys so much for being here on the panel.
Thanks,